Today we have some fun meeting Brad Cummings, the CEO and co-founder of the brewery Tiny Rebel. He talks about starting the business on a pure passion and how lucky he has been that by following his dreams, he has never felt like he's done a day's work. He explained how he has grown and scaled the business, gaining B Corp status for the brewery, sharing how important it is to have a purpose and environmental stance for his customers to get behind. We hear of his plans to widen and deepen the Tiny Rebel offering so that he can adapt towards changes in market trends, but whilst always staying true to the brand that he and Gaz have built. Finally, he shares his passion for developing and empowering his team to make decisions as the business grows. I hope you enjoy. Hello, today we welcome Brad Cummings from Tiny Rebel, who's going to tell us his story of building his own brewery down in South Wales, in Newport. And we're going to get some insight into how you attack such a huge and competitive market and how he's trying to do things differently from his competition. So welcome, Brad. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Pleasure. Good. So, look, I think it's always nice that we start these conversations with a bit of background on yourself, because then people can kind of know the guy behind the business and know the drive, and they've got some context for obviously the other questions and areas that we'll explore as we go through the podcast. So if you could start by giving us that bit of history, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem, Steve. So I'm Brad Cummings. So as Steve said, I'm the co-founder, CEO of Tiny Rebel, and I'm 37 years old. I got two kids, two amazing kids, ages 4 and 8. Live with my partner, who's also got two kids, ages 5 and 9. So a very, very busy household.
So you come to work for a rest, do you?
Yeah, you could say that, mate. You could say that. Yeah, this is the kids live here at the brewery just as much as I do. Put it that way. Just with how busy Tiny Rebel's been over the last 12, going on 13 years now. So so that's my sort of current family setup. I come from a big family, actually. So I'm one of 5 siblings. My mum and dad, and I'm the last but one. I was the youngest, the favorite, until my younger sister came along. Quite a few years later than me. So there's a bit of a gap between us both. So she's now a favourite. But
you've not got an issue with that though. You're fine. You're over
it. Yeah. I went from being the favourite to the rebel of the family. So
there's a story in that, I believe. Yeah. Fabulous.
That was me. So I got 5 amazing, 4 amazing brothers and sisters, 1 older brother, and 3 sisters. So well versed in trying to fight for my place in the family, put it that way. So
exactly. Without making this a therapy session, there's something in that when you've had a big family, you've had to fight for your voice. It gives people a certain drive. I think you can see that as a common factor coming through these podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, definitely. When every one of my brother and my 3 sisters, they've all got a degree in uni in some sort of shape or form. And I'm the only one without one. So I'm the only one who left school at 16. So I'm, and I sort of cut my own path off the back of that. So where they were all academics, I wasn't at all.
So brilliant. So what was your path? Obviously, you were about 25, I'm assuming, doing some basic maths when you started Tiny Rebel.
So I was actually 24 when when we sort of launched. But our journey, which I'll probably get into a bit later on, but so our journey into Tiny Rebel started a few years before that. But my background in business, I never had one. But my dad luckily did. So, my dad is an electrician by trade. He then started his own business. As I was growing up, it was then a family business. My mum sort of ran the office and the accounts. My dad went out there and project managed and run the business. So, I always had that sort of entrepreneurial, living and breathing what a family business looks like. I still remember going into my dad's office, after work or half term, summer holidays. And I would raid the stationery cupboard thinking it was amazing, nicking all highlighters and new pens. And, as you are as a kid to build up your pencil case portfolio. So I thought it was great back then. But yeah, so off the back of that, I always had a sort of working mindset, that you had to work. So even when I was 12 years old, over the summer holidays, I used to work in the local garden centre. Even while, I was in school, high school at the time, I think it was year 7, I used to work in the local restaurant, pot washing, on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, not getting home until sort of 12, 1 in the morning. And I still remember the chef my mum said to the chef, make sure he crosses the road okay. After that, he's on his own. So I'd have to, so I get seen across the road, the main road, and then make sure I then, sort of darted home as quick as I could. So I always had a bit of a entrepreneurial sort of background then. I used to, back in the day of Napster when you could download, music for free. I used to download, loads of music overnight, rinse in my mum and dad's, dial-up internet, and make CDs and sell them in school. So I used to
No
download all
way.
this
I love it.
music, rip them onto CDs. I'd buy a pack of 100, blank CDs for about a tenner, I think it was. Make CDs and sell them for a fiver.
Wow.
So that was my sort of my gig in school. I was what I was known as. So people would come to me with a list
The
of
music
songs.
man, the music man. I
So
love it.
yeah. So off the back of
So it
that, was
sounds
just
like you.
my love of
Sorry.
music, really. So that's sort of my goal when I was young, a young teenager. I wanted to be a DJ. So yeah, at the age of 14, going off on a bit of a tangent here, but at the age of 14, I bought my first set of DJ decks, which I had for my birthday. So that was my goal was I want to be a DJ, and it never happened. But I still bedroom DJ, and we
Yeah.
run a we run an event at the brewery every year called Rebel Fest. So I always plug myself a little slot in every year.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's my party. I'm having a slot. Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a slot. So so that's
Brilliant. So
yeah.
so
Born
it's
in
obviously
Cardiff,
within.
I was raised in Newport.
Right. Okay. So obviously, if by example, your father sort of let you know you can run your own thing, because I think that's interesting, isn't it? To some people, the thought of starting your own business is terrifying, but if it's in every day, and my dad ran his own business, and so when I went on my own, same sort of thing. It was like, well, no, it's normal in our household. That's what you do. You run your own thing, and you see that freedom. You see the hard work, but don't know. You get a bit of a sniff for it, don't you? Think, oh, I quite fancy doing that.
Yeah, and it all comes, from the reason we started Tiny Rebel was purely out of passion, passion for beer, passion for brewing. At the time we were home brewing. We weren't me and Gaz. Our background was engineering, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. Gaz is electrical engineer. He also left school at 16, went into apprenticeship, doing being a sparky, and then I went into air conditioning of all things. So yeah, so that's where
So
our
how?
sort of journey sort of started, and that's how we were working for the same company, and that's where our sort of bond came to be. And then Gaz started dating my sister, which made us even closer. And then, as you say, the rest is history. But he had a big passion for beer and got me into it at a young age. And I say young age, probably 21, which you say to a 21-year-old, drink some real ale, which it was at the
Yeah,
time. Well, that's for old men.
yeah,
With slippers, and what are you drinking warm beer for? You
yeah.
know.
We
So
should be
we
on
sort of
fruity alco pops at this age. Yeah,
nah, yeah, or straight up, just lager, mainstream, or your hooch. So we were sort of where everyone was going that way, we was sort of zagging the other way.
So what was the moment, the epiphany where you go, right, let's start a brewery?
Um, well, Gaz started homebrewing. So I used to go over his house on a Friday night. We'd have a few beers, and he made this little his own homebrew kit. Basically, he dismantled a few kettles, took the elements out, put them into being an electrician by trade. It all could have blown up and gone tits up, but luckily it didn't. But he put them into a couple of buckets, and we had a big ice bucket cooler, that we used to chill the beer back down again. We'd fill it with ice. And we did it more of it was a hobby. We could talk around it, it then became a bit of a passion then, and we started taking it a bit more serious. And the way of what we were making was pretty bloody good. if I'm all like, if I'm being honest, the ones
You're
which
like,
went
yeah,
well, the brews that went well tasted good. The ones which, and probably over the last, that period of time before we set Tiny Rebel up, we probably homebrewed around, 200 plus different beers, and probably 80% of them were absolutely terrible,
yeah,
undrinkable. But we would learn more from the ones which were bad than the ones from, which were good. So we sort of
yeah,
started dialing in on, the craft of what, we wanted, our beer to taste like. We went and got inspiration. So we traveled to London, or go to Bristol, because we would go to those places because at the time, South Wales was very monopolized with brains and you couldn't get
yeah.
anything else. There wasn't much choice, so we had to travel or order beer online. My brother lived in America and he would come home every Christmas and bring, American beers back, which at the time were much more progressive than what we were. The craft beer sort of boom had
Yeah,
just
because
started over there.
the microbrewery thing's huge. It wasn't. It was huge in the States in the sort of '90s
Yeah,
and 2000s, and suddenly it's come over, hasn't it?
yeah, but most fashion and trends start in America and make their way over. We're just,
Yeah,
a few months or a few years behind, depending on what industry it is. Probably a bit less now
that's
with social
brilliant.
media, but at the time, social media wasn't really a thing. So, yeah, so that sparked the
Yeah,
idea to start Tiny Rebel. And that sort of idea then came with let's put a business plan together. Let's get a brand. Let's think of some names. Let's try and get, a portfolio built up of what that would look like. Let's go and get some funding. Let's get a website up and running. So we had probably 2 years in the background while having full-time jobs and, families in the background as well, of pure sacrifice really, just to go, this is what we want to do. Let's go and do it. But when we do
yeah,
it, we want to hit the ground running, not start a business and then think, what have we got to do now?
yeah,
So we put a lot of time and effort into getting that, style set up, the finance setup, understanding commercial brewing, going from a homebrew kit, a 50-liter homebrew kit, to a 2,000-liter, you know, commercial kit is a big jump.
yeah,
And there's a lot of talk, in between me and Gaz on quality, consistency, because that's what it comes down to. We didn't just want to sell a beer once.
yeah,
The biggest compliment you can have is people go back up and buy another pint. And
yeah.
that's where the quality from day one was always ingrained in what me and Gaz wanted to do.
And do you think the discipline of having to write a business plan to either get funding or get bank accounts, did that help you really focus your mind about what you wanted the Tiny Rebel brand to be and to stand for?
Yeah, I think very early on it was always, because me and Gaz, we grew up with this over that period of time. It was always, great times with great beer. Whenever we would go out and explore the world of beer, it's all based around having a great time, great experience, followed by great beer. And that sort of, and the memories you make from that, that sort of summed up what we wanted Tiny Rebel to be and stand for. And then on the brand front, we didn't really have a name to sort of bring that along. So the more we thought about what the brewery name was going to be, the worse they got. And still to this day, I've never told anyone some of the names that we sort of came up with because I'm too embarrassed.
Come on,
But
this could be a bit of therapy now, Brad. Share, share.
oh no, no, honestly, they're going to my grave with me. Let me tell you.
All right, we'll leave it there then.
You leave it there. But luckily, so talking about my brother who was in America at the time, so he was working in the games industry for a company called Rockstar Games. So he was project managing, a creative director on Grand Theft Auto. So he would come home at Christmas with his wife, and they came home one Christmas and said, "Oh, Brad, we're leaving Rockstar. We're going to set up our own, our own consultancy for the gaming industry." I was like, "Oh, fantastic! This is before Skype and everything else." So we were like, "Oh well, me and Gaz are setting up a brewery, a microbrewery." And he's like, "Oh, great, amazing. Well, this is, I'm calling my company Tiny Rebel Studios." So I was like, "What a great name, Lee. Can we steal it off you?"
Yeah,
So, and that sort of, it sort of clicked in Tiny Rebel, which was small but different. And that's, when me and
Yeah.
Gaz, the vision for the brand was, great times, great beer, but we wanted to be, we never came from the industry. We just wanted to be small, do our thing, maybe, 5, 10 employees, run it as a lifestyle, take a day off when you want to take a day off, have a bar at some point. That was sort of our vision for it. It wasn't, grand scale plans, but, after we ingrained and locked the name in, and then we got Taz on board, who's our designer. And the story for Taz was on my brother's business card that said Tiny Rebel Studios on. There was an illustration, a bit like our beer, of a bunny rabbit sort of laying on the floor. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. Where'd you get that from? Oh, I found it online. Someone published it for free. I thought it looked cool as well, so I just sort of nicked it. I was like, oh, do you know who, where, what? Can't remember, don't have a clue.
Yeah.
So over that Christmas period in 2010, I spent most of it online trying to take this image and trying to find it online. And I eventually
Find
did.
the artist. Yeah.
I eventually did. And there was no artist name, it was just an email address called Invisible Snow and at whatever.com. And I was like, okay, I'll email them, emailed them, and I had a pretty quick response back. And it was a girl from Swindon, from anywhere in the world.
You're back
A girl
now.
from Swindon, right? So emailed her, told her what we were doing, and said, look, I really like your style. And we're looking to get we got a name for the brand, Tiny Rebel, and we really like your style. We'd love you to work on our business logo, our company logo. Yeah, no problem at all. So while she was home, so she was living in Canada at the time, but she was home for Christmas. So I darted down the M5 and M4, went and met her in the Hilton Hotel, just off Junction 15. I still remember it to this day. Walking in, never seen her in my life. Ooh, are you Taz? Hi, I'm Brad, and it being a bit awkward, but laid out the plan, and she was straight on board. So very early on, while we were still homebrewing, in the background, then we were working on the design, the brand, the feel, the tone, the look, And I'm not a marketeer. I've not come from a brand background, but Gaz and I knew it just had to resemble and be a projection of what we were interested in and what we liked. And that's pretty much what Tiny Rebel has always been about. It's very personal to us. And that's where the brand, sort of came from. And Taz, we brought Taz in, and Taz has been on board ever since. So,
Oh, wow.
there's a
So
creative
is she leading a lot of the packaging design and everything that you do now?
Yeah,
In
so
terms of cans
I work with Taz every day, so you can probably see in the background
Oh, yeah.
every bit of imagery, whether it be on a can, a box, a poster, a glass, a t-shirt, that's all designed by Taz. So she's absolutely amazing, and the journey that we've been on, we would never have got there without the team of, Taz, Gaz, and myself. It's
I think it's
we knew what our role was, if that makes sense.
yeah.
We all brought something to the party.
And I think also when you've got such a natural proposition, i.e., you're bringing something alive for yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that, look, we are doing this for us, and this is the energy we'll put into it. Then I don't think you realise the energy that you put into that brand, you inject into that brand, that then you've managed to find someone like Taz to physically represent it, that people can then also buy. Because the strapline you got on the website of that, bring good times with a hint of beer, is just such a lovely. You just smile, don't you? Because it's you obviously drink responsibly and all that, but it always helps to have a couple of beers when you're having a good time with mates. And I think brands that we've worked with over the years, the ones that have got an actual raw passion that drives it, it's not driven from we want to be millionaires this time next year, Rodney. It's more about, look, we really like good beer. The product we're going to make is fab, but we're going to wrap something around that people can really buy into. Suddenly becomes a really, really powerful mix, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just the name Tiny Rebel hits people on an emotional level. There's a little bit of rebelliousness in all of us in some shape or form. and then this on a branding level, then the sort of nostalgia, what Gaz and I are interested in, a bit more edgy, urban. My music taste is everyone hates it actually, but I love drum and bass. And we've just recently, actually, on Monday, we had our AGM, which we call our clubhouse day, and I was voted worst DJ in terms of music taste. So,
But you still got your gig book though for
but I
next
still
year,
got my
yeah.
gig book. But yeah, but yeah, it's that we try, and whether it's a beer name or a design on a can or on a t-shirt, we find it's not just the liquid in there, that makes you come back again, but that initial, why I want to grab that, why that looks appealing to me, you've got to get past, you've got to hit people on an emotional level. It can't just look good these days.
Yeah.
And I think we've
I
learned
think, yeah,
that.
that was going to be one of my questions, Brad, because we've done a lot of work in the alcohol sector for many different sides of it, and sort of Brewdog and others coming in, there's been a challenge maybe that some of these brands are more style over substance, that they don't maybe overly focus on the liquid, more of the brand wrapped around it. And just listening to you there for the first few minutes of this interview, it's like it's very much liquid first, and then you've also wrapped something cool around it, because your point is you might pick the can off the shelf and go, this looks good, and then you go, oh my word, that's horrendous. Whereas if you can get both right, that is quite magical, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, and that's, you have to build, a business, it has to be sustainable, in terms
Hmm.
of, what product you're bringing out, it has to be long term, not just a small, quick impact, and, Tiny Rebel, we're fully independent, we're family owned, we got a great team around us, but we want to be here, indefinitely. We never wanted to be just a splash in the ocean,
Yeah.
and be on trend at the time, and then gone, when the new trend comes out and that one fades away. So that was always it was really important for us to, get the liquid right and get the brand right. And that's why we spent so much time on it, before we even launched the brewery officially.
And so is a question maybe about, because if you was sitting there sanely, you're looking at the alcohol, and especially the whether it's the beer or lager or whatever the sector, whichever way you want to look at it, is one of the most competitive in certainly in the UK, isn't it? And your sanity might go, why would we bother? How do we make our mark? And I think you've come in from the other way, is we've got a cool product we want people to find, and so is that what people are buying into, do you think, when you speak to customers about what they think about the brand?
Yeah, I think definitely that, that's like a USP to us, 100%. And from when we started in 2012, craft was just becoming a thing, in the
Yeah.
UK, and we were pretty much architects, within that sort of craft revolution, in terms of, what we did, not just on a liquid front or a brand front, but, how we presented ourselves, as a business, how we presented ourselves to the world. We did a lot early on, to sort of ingrain ourselves as sort of, that sort of pioneer architect level, and sort of, lay the roadmap out. We never follow trends, we set them, and that's what we always try to do. Is, like I said earlier, where, people were zigging, we'd be going zagging over this way. Um, we never tried to be too sort of patriotic in terms of being Welsh. We're so proud of being Welsh, but we
Hmm.
wanted our brand to be able to travel. And I
Yeah.
think, on a Welsh level, sometimes that's very difficult. And just referring back to, Brains, who, sort of monopolised, sort of South Wales, back in the day, I think they struggled to travel with that brand. And we looked at all
Yeah.
this when we were sort of setting up, the business and what we wanted to be and who we wanted to be and what consumers we wanted to target, and we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves, to that. So we wanted someone to pick up a Tiny Rebel can and go, man, this could be from anywhere in the world, but
Yeah.
I don't care where it's from. It looks
It's
great, it
good.
tastes great, and that connects with me as a person.
I think that's just it, isn't it? There is the power of things like obviously social media that wasn't around when you first started. Or it was, but not to the level where it can make a difference to the brand. But allowing people to discover a brand and kind of own it is so powerful in building advocates to spread the word for you, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I hate to burst the bubble for both of us, but we're never going to have the brands for a business like this to take on a Heineken or to take on a whatever, are we? So we've got to be really smart and create a demand that is nearly a movement, isn't it, around it, rather than I'll just consider it.
Yeah, we're going through that journey now. We're, back in 2012, probably up to 2015, 16, where, the craft market was, growing rapidly. It was a real competitor, to the likes of Heineken, InBev, Molson Coors, your larger brands. They didn't see craft as credible, really.
Yeah,
But craft in the UK it's made itself credible. It's taken market share now. Over that period of time. And it's locked in a category. That's here to stay. It's created a new category for beer.
yeah,
Within that space, a very short space of time. But like in most industries, what's happened now is, the market is now consolidated. Those you know, bigger major breweries, your Heinekens, etc., have sort of bought up a lot of the craft brands and
yeah,
consolidated. Your Beavertown, your Camden, and the market is now a lot tougher. And
yeah,
craft at the moment, from where it was, it is on a decline. But we're seeing now, our direct competition is your Heineken, your
yeah.
Beavertown, your
Or in
Camden,
one of their brands that they've bought. Yeah,
or
no,
one of
no.
the brands that they bought. So, that is our competition now. It wasn't back in the day, but now it is. So, on a business side, on a business level, we've had to move, adapt, change, to really compete, but win against them. And that's,
Yeah,
challenges that we're going through at the moment now, and change that we're going through is, to be up against them, we got to think like them, and we got to be better than them.
yeah. And then let the brand take you over the line,
And
nearly. Yeah.
correct, yeah.
In terms of your distribution, then is it on trade or off trade, or is it obviously a combination of both? But where are you seeing the potential for growth?
So yeah, so we play in both. So on trade is our biggest focus. It's our biggest channel, and
Hmm.
our biggest opportunity really at the moment, is to get after that sort of on trade volume. So we got a very ambitious 3-year plan that we actually laid out to the whole business on Monday when we had our clubhouse day. So everyone's geared up, excited, for the next sort of 3 years of growth. Um,
Hmm.
New brands coming out along with that. So there's a lot going on at the moment in the business. So yeah, but we're that's where we're seeing the sort of market go in.
Because
And if you don't,
that's interesting because the sort of macro trends are away from the on trade, away from pubs into the the off trade in terms of retail and stuff like that. But it's quite interesting if you've seen a niche that you actually, while the giants are sleeping, you can get in there and get that because there's a certain credibility that comes from being in a pub, isn't it? From that end, that people go, ah, it must be a
there,
real beer.
there is, and going back to our sort of vision, which is great times, great beer. It's really, you only get that in a pub experience
Yeah,
or a bar or a
because it's
restaurant.
holistic thing. Yeah, okay, yeah,
Correct. But off trade. So we're in the off trade as well. So we work with all the major supermarkets, and we've only been doing that for a short space of time. So we've been in the on trade since 2012, and we've only been in the off trade since 2020.
yeah,
So very short space of time there. But we've seen big growth in there. Very valuable to be in that channel as well.
yeah,
So people can have that home experience, or the barbecue or party friends. But yeah, it's still a very important channel to us, and that just in itself has changed a lot. Over the course of 4, 5, 6 years. Where you'd only ever see craft as a single 330 ml can,
yeah,
but now we've got a mixed 12 pack IPA pack. We've got Club Tropica 4 pack. We got Club Tropica 10 packs. So they've really, where the on trade especially is opened its arms to craft as a category. So is the off trade. Which is great.
yeah. It is, and some of the big chains are being very supportive, aren't they, of what they would see as smaller brands to to differentiate themselves in the market to say, look, you'll get a better choice, you'll get a more realistic choice. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
How is the I mean, again, back on that, how are the changes in people's drinking habits going to impact on Tiny Rebel in terms of we're seeing some of the research that we're seeing is this idea of people having a night out, they're still drinking, but they may well have a couple of no-lows and then the favourite drink, the favourite cocktail, then, they'll mix a night rather than just going straight out and on it, as we used to say. Are you
Yeah,
seeing that? Is that putting demand on? Well, not demand. Is that something you're going to try and address, that you've got an option to allow people to enjoy the liquid in different formats?
yeah. So I think for our portfolio going forward, non-alc is a key part of that. Also low,
Yeah,
and sort of a 3.4%. So you're not having to,
a driving beer, we like to call it.
if you want to call it that, yeah, sessionable.
if if
But
you go if you
but
go the
light.
back way,
So, we're seeing those as, two sort of key categories sort of going forward, strategically,
yeah,
but really with, the trends. And I'm in the same boat as well. I'm quite fit and active. I don't drink every night, or if I go out, I'll have a non-alc on the way. So it's, I think people are very more switched on with health, which I think is a bloody fantastic thing.
it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing, is it? Yeah,
No, and on, how that would affect Tiny Rebel is at the moment it doesn't, because we've got so much untapped potential,
yeah,
in terms of percentages of how many pubs there are in the UK, we're only in 2% of them.
yeah,
So we've got a long way to go, to start, chipping away at that, that 100%. 100% of the outlets aren't for us, may not fit our
yeah.
brand, but we've still got a long way to go. So, we just got to keep, driving distribution in that respect, and not worry too much about people's drinking habits, and just making us
For the
focus
minute,
on
yeah.
what we do. Yeah, exactly what we do best, which is make great beer, great brand, and deliver great customer service off the back of that as well.
Yeah, I think interesting on the back on the off trade. And are the supermarkets demanding a certain level of activity so that you're supporting the brand? I can remember we were heavily involved when Krabby's first launched the the alcoholic ginger beer back in probably the late 2010, around that time, and trying to get it in supermarkets in those days was like, yeah, you can have a bit of shelf, but if you want the kind of gondola end, if you want a feature, we want to be seeing, are you doing TV? Are you doing outdoor? And it was like, we're not, we're a small, but at that time it was a very small brand and it was a category that didn't exist. There was the ice over ciders, yeah, the Magners, but suddenly ginger beer, alcoholic. Are you seeing that, or are you seeing that there's much more support nowadays for smaller challenger brands coming into the market?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more support, especially within craft, 100%.
Yeah,
When we entered off trade, we went exclusive with Sainsbury's for 2 years, and they were amazingly supportive, of, try this, try that. We don't need a big marketing spend. They sort of invested in us and saw
brilliant.
value in having, us there, to drive new people through the door. And that's the sort of value, they got from it. But what we were able to do is, trial and error, see what works. So actually, just recently, and I think it's still in Sainsbury's now, but we've just done. We launched the new mixed 12 IPA pack, with a free glass. So we did that as
Yeah,
a 3-4 week promotion. So yeah, we know what works. We know what consumers want, but you do need that help, because otherwise, as a business, you could be pissing in the wind a little bit and chucking money away. For big activations and off trade, they're costly.
yeah.
They can
It's
be a
nearly
lot.
like
Yeah,
you've been given a bit of a sandpit to play in, haven't you, in practice, which is wonderful when you've got that
yeah,
exposure of a brand like that and the footprint.
yeah, exactly. And we love activations. That's what the brand has been built on. Even from the days me and Gaz, going out to pubs. I still remember, tracing up to bloody London, up to Edinburgh, up to bloody Chester, to sit in a pub, stand on a chair in the corner, and talk to everyone about Tiny Rebel. And most of the time in that pub, people wouldn't give a fuck, but you'd probably have 3 or 4 people there, and then you get around the pub talking and try this, try that. And that was our sort of marketing activation, and people loved it. And
That's
it was
brilliant.
something different. It was something different,
Something different, and I mean, amazing kind of to build insight too, isn't it? To say, oh, that one didn't go well, but look, everyone's making a beeline for that. Well, you got that real time feedback that most brands would dream of.
Yeah, you've got to put the graft in, but yeah, it's a lot more not challenging. You just got to be a lot smarter. I think now, with sort of marketing spend, activation spend, because again, with any business, unless you're backed by a Heineken, a Molson Coors, or an AB InBev, or a big investment firm like Brewdog are, you've got money to burn. And as an independent brand, we don't.
Yeah. You've got to be very, very smart and targeted with your budgets, haven't you? And try and test and learn on a safe way before you then roll and invest out into it. Yeah. That's
Smart
brilliant.
risks is what we try.
Tell me this then, because I've got a 21-year-old and 19-year-old, I told you earlier, and they've taken after their father rather than a lot of their peers who don't drink as much. And we at home have a collection of glasses from Camden and from Beavertown.
Yeah.
Is that built into your marketing budget that people may take the odd souvenir home from a night out and maybe either one of your pubs or where you've got these glasses stocked?
Well, I hope you got a Tiny Rebel one as well, Steve.
Not yet, but
no.
I'll send them out.
Why not?
if you're giving me permission to steal one of your glasses from a pub, I'll just tell that to the barman.
Hey, hey, you make a glass good enough to be stolen. That's the key. If you can make a glass good enough to be stolen, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. It's cool, isn't it? Because you look at them and they are the beautiful works of art.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
They are. And funny enough, we've got if you jump on our Instagram, we've actually got a post on there. I think it's pinned actually, so it should be right at the top, showing people different ways that how you can actually steal a glass. So
right.
We encourage it. It's all a bit of fun.
What distribution have you got in Newcastle? Because I'm taking him back this afternoon so he could straighten and focus.
Yeah, we got a few places up in Newcastle. I'll send you a few.
Send me that afterwards. Brilliant. So look, you've got a lot of the conversations I've had now with brands over the last few weeks recording the podcast. I've talked a lot about purpose and a lot about from that side of it. And you've obviously got this beautiful story to why you're doing it and that energy that you're coming through. But you've got a B Corp status. So can you tell me a little bit about that journey? Because it's not that easy to get, especially as a manufacturer, is it?
No, it's not. And probably started around, the reason we wanted to be a B Corp. So we've over the last since our inception, we've always been sort of ingrained in community. People doing things the right way, massive on sort of community. And that community is not just, local around Newport, but we introduced a few years back the Tiny Rebel Community Fund, which anyone from in the UK, can pitch in. We set a pot of money aside every year, and people can, pitch in, to have some of that for a project they've got, and over the years we've helped, people all over the country, and there might be individual, it might be community projects, schools, what B Corp, when we looked at B Corp, because it was, again, a few years back, because our journey on B Corp started around 3 years ago, even though we've only just got our accreditation this year. So it took a long time to put the application in, to go through the motions, but it was all around us being, a positive, and a force for good. Not just on, sustainability, but we wanted to be a business that, our team, the whole Tiny Rebel team could be proud of that's a tick in the box. We understand what B Corp is, because a lot of things you do, you can't really sum up in one thing. When we looked at B Corp, it sort of summed up everything that we were doing anyway.
So it was just trying to get that public accreditation to say, look, we are doing this.
Exactly that. It's no different to an accreditation for how you run your brewery. So we're Salsa Beer Plus accredited. And even if we weren't accredited, we would still run the same way. But
Yeah.
that accreditation gives, consumers, customers, suppliers, and everyone else, a real trust, in what you're doing is correct because it's audited in that respect, so there's nowhere
Yeah.
to hide. So it was a great thing for us to be a part of. The B Corp B Lab team were absolutely fantastic. And it's made us now, put an improvement plan in place. From continuous improvement is a big thing in Tiny Rebel. And having high standards. Not just on social, environmental impact. But to our team and stakeholders as well. So it was really key for us to sort of get that, and we went on a fun journey. It wasn't it wasn't tough. It was tough, but in terms of it was fun along the way. It
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a bugbear of my life. And we had a team on it. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was amazing to get the accreditation. At the end of it.
That's brilliant. So you see, you use the words there of continual improvement and continual development, and does Brad sit there and go, I've made it? Is there a measure in your head of what success looks like for the business of Tiny Rebel, or is it no, this is just a great journey, we're keeping going? You know what I mean? Is there a day you reflect and go, right, feet up, pipe out, I'm done?
No, do you know what?
Not with 4 kids anyway, mate. In a few years.
Do you know what? My missus always says you're too bloody modest. You don't give yourself any reward or recognition, and I don't. In all fairness, I always business people first. It's how I run. I never big myself up. In terms of what me, Gaz, the business have achieved. Whether it be personally or on a business level. So no, and we've always said from day one, Gaz and I, when it stops being fun, it's time to go, or we're doing something wrong. So we have to keep challenging, but it needs to be fun, not just for us, but for everyone to come to work and enjoy it. Because you spend a third of your life in work, people, and then
most of your waking hours, don't you? Are there, aren't they? Yeah.
And then some. So it has to be somewhere that people love coming to. It's almost a home from home. We've got that culture in the business. And we love that. We love people, seeing people's sort of passion to come to work. And it's the energy that brings. Yeah, it makes you want to come to work. Not just me, but the wider team.
So how would you? I've got a deep question for you. How would you describe yourself as a leader? How are you and Gaz in terms of leading the business? What do you think your team would say about you?
How do we lead the business? For me personally, we're in the business. I think that's a very key part of it. Accessible, visible. I think that that's big traits of a leader. And Gaz and I, we head the business up, but we're always in it. Day to day. Probably too much in the thick of it, if I'm being honest. In some of the challenges that we're up against, but we enjoy it. We enjoy it so much. Sometimes we want to be involved in too much. Not that we don't trust the team, but we want to know what's going on. There's never a point that we don't know what's going on. We're not controlling. As leaders, we let people fail. We let people run with things. We don't micromanage. But we bring people up, and that's a key part of what we've always done. We've tried to bring people, internal first. Before going external, we've always tried to bring people up. We've got people who've worked in the business now for 10 years, which is absolutely fantastic. Our 4th employee, guy called Tom, he's been with us, from 2013, he's still with us now. And he's come through the business, on the same sort of path as us, really, from you do everything. We've done dray vans, I've sold beer, I've brewed beer, I've done finance, I've done the marketing, I've done pretty much everyone's job from quality to warehousing. We've all done a bit of that. So we lead by example as sort of leaders that we are.
Brilliant. And obviously as the business grows, there is going to be potentially a time where you have to evolve and alter that and bring in more structure. But I suppose if you're looking after your talent and involving your talent internally, you're going to start to see natural replacements. Not that you'd be replaced, but as you evolve to a different job and a different level, you've hopefully got that talent path coming through, haven't you? Is that something you and the guys think about actively?
Yeah, that's something that we've got in. We've got a rebel leadership team, our RLT. We try not to sort of label everything, but we have a rebel leadership team in place where that's the sort of where we were 12 months ago. We've tried to implement and empower everyone else. To make decisions. I don't need to ring Gaz or Brad to get a decision. I'm comfortable and confident that I can make a decision on this. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's my decision, and I'm going to get backed whatever decision I decide to make. So we brought that in, and you can only bring things like that in when you're a certain size.
Yeah.
That we've learned. We've tried to do it when we were a lot smaller, but we became one of our strengths is being agile. Being quick. And at the time, we tried to do it pre-COVID, and it was just too soon in our journey. We weren't big enough to have those sort of levels of
put that structure in that slowed you down. Yeah,
it massively slowed us down, and we learned from that. We made so many mistakes in the business, but we learned from them, and that's the key thing. So we've learned from that. And we put it in last year where we thought, the size of the business was right. We employ, 155 people. We're the biggest brewery in Wales in terms of volume. A key brand in Wales and the UK. So the team there, we needed sort of a bit more control, process, and structure. So, and that's been welcomed. It's been welcomed by the team. The team love it. From
they can start to see how they progress in the organisation, can't they? Rather than just thinking, oh, those guys are never going to go, and they realise as this thing grows more and more legs, there's other jobs to do that aren't being looked after at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, we're getting towards the end of the recording. It's nice to do a bit of reflection. Your wife said you never stop. So is there anything that you've learnt on your journey, Brad, now that you would love to be able to go back to 2012 when you were kicking this thing off with Gaz and go, here's a little warning, here's a little piece of advice, don't forget this, young Brad? Is there anything you can think of on that?
Oh, geez. Don't always employ family. It gets far too political, and it gets far too spoken around the dinner table.
I was about to say Christmas becomes fun, doesn't it?
Christmas becomes a work meeting, put it that way. Yeah. But no, I think we've always been from day one family owned, and we were originally obviously family operated. We had a lot more family in the business, way back when. Being super critical of myself, yes, that would be the one.
Yeah, it's
just to give a bit of breathing space to to home life, and again, just you need a break. No matter who it is, you need to if you own a business, you're always thinking about work, but there needs to be just for your own, mindset really and mental health. You need a break.
I think,
and I think compartmentalize that that's work. And I can have a safe space over here.
Yeah, and that safe space where you, like you were talking about your family holiday, you weren't allowed to be anything other than fun dad. You were literally, the kids demand it, and you need that. You need that. Right, shake my head. I'm not Brad the successful businessman. I'm Brad the dad, Brad the husband. And if you intertwine those two worlds, you're right. There's no downtime, and it's not healthy. It really isn't.
No, we've all been there where we've worked X amount of hours a week. We've worked over the weekend, we're run down, we're going to bed late, and you just fall into bad habit, and you feel like you can't lift your head above the parapet, and it makes you so less productive.
I would say your effectiveness drops, doesn't it? Yeah,
and probably a worse leader, off the back of it, So
you find yourself angry and not understanding why. It's just because there's no escape from it. And I think I know, listening to you, Brad, I think I know the answer to this question, but I do like to ask it. Are there any regrets in taking this journey on?
Oh, absolutely none. No, and that's the great thing. It's been so fun. I've developed personally as a person. I look back at what I was like when I was 24. And I even look back at what I was like when I was 18. I never imagined, I'd be where I am today. On a personal level. You know, um, being able to to mentor, be used as a bit of a sounding board for for people in the business, and also a lot of people outside the business who friends, other businesses who come to me for advice. So just to be that and have that experience is absolutely amazing, and something I never ever thought I would have.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Because if you there's a bit of a cliched saying that if you follow a passion or something you have an absolute love for, you'll never work a day in your life. But there's a lot of truth in that, and we have a lot of young guys here, and I will always say to them is like, just do something you love because it will feel much more fun. You will be a different person into it. But I think sometimes people fear, well, how will I make a living? And you follow the passion, and the livings come with it, if that makes sense. I don't think you said that I'll set up a brewery to make loads of money. Well, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think it was more that I want to do this, and if you
Yeah,
get it right and you position it right, the success follows. And I think that's always the best way.
yeah, 100%, 100%, and yeah, I can't wait for the next 3 to 10 years. Where I'll be then. On a personal level, and where obviously Tiny Rebel will be then.
It's
It's
exciting, isn't
exciting
it?
times. It is very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah,
Can't come
love
quick
it.
enough sometimes. That's the thing. Yeah.
Come on, come on.
Yeah.
I love it. Look, we will watch with absolute interest. It's brilliant. Brad, thank you so much for your time. I have loved hearing about the business and wish you and Gaz and all the team every success in the future as you beat the big boys and show them how to do it right.
That's the next step, mate. Watch it. Watch out. Watch out.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Take care. Thanks, mate.